Think about it. We get up, the body tells us, go to Starbucks, go to Dunkin' Donuts, get a donut. Now it tells me to go get some chocolate. Now it tells me to go here. Now it tells me to eat too much, drink too much. So we have to start disciplining the body and telling it no.
So today, we've got a special treat. We've got Pastor Shane Idleman here, and he has completed a 40-day water fast, or well, a 40-day fast. We're going to get into the details of the fast and everything here very shortly, but I want to give Pastor Shane an opportunity to share with us a little bit of background about himself, and then we're going to dive right in and we're going to get y'all's questions. We're going to have a lot of fun. So, Pastor, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, I'd love to. And you need to know that I actually watched a lot of your videos on a healthy alternative, and that kind of helped me motivate me, prepare me. And I've got a heart for fasting. I've written a few books on fasting, and I pastor a church here in Southern California. We're about an hour north of Los Angeles. And just fasting has been on my heart for quite a while. Maybe we can get into that in a little bit. And so I've done a lot of research on it from Autophagy and Walter Longo here in Southern California. I think he's at USC on longevity and different fasting and how it affects the body from stem cells and growth hormones and all kinds of things. So I wrote a couple books on fasting, and actually your audience can download them for free. We make them available as free downloads on our church website, westsidechristianfellowship.org. Again, that's westsidechristianfellowship.org. Just download it free and be blessed. And that's really what I want to do, is encourage people. So long story short, I love fasting. I've done some pretty lengthy fasts, 9 days or 11 days. And I even did about 40 days over a 3.5 month period last year. And it's just where God has me right now. I can explain that later. I don't want to get too fanatical about it, but I think the problem in our country isn't fasting too much, it's overconsumption. And
for
so
sure.
Trying to find that balance and really just helping people, because I pray for a lot of people. You know, we've got a large church here in Southern California, and I'm praying for people, it seems like every week, for diabetes and heart-related issues and things that are actually type 2 diabetes, I should clarify, actually are diet-related. And so I'd love to pray for people. I believe in that. But also you begin to wonder how much of this current problem and current crisis is self-created. But God has just been putting on my heart for a few years to do a long 40-day fast and preparing myself. And I did. It was mainly just water, lost 37 pounds. But, you know, if I had to preach, let's say 3 times on Easter, I would bring, a mason jar of grapefruit juice, you know, just to get through that day, and being strategic, using wisdom. There's a few times, you know, I would just have maybe a protein shake. Just if I had a very busy week. For example, the first week I started, we had church services every night for a week at 6:00. And so, you know, if I had to have a little bit of nutrients to get me through that, I wanted to use wisdom as well. But it was an incredible experience. And now we just want to talk about it. People can find it on YouTube. If they just put 40-day fasting experience by Shane Idleman, it should pop up. And we did a documentary on it. And I talk a lot more extensively in that documentary about it and how it helps people.
That's beautiful, man. I mean, you know, to have such an extensive background as it relates to fasting, and also the work that you do. One of the things we were kind of chatting earlier, and I mentioned that my dad is a bishop, and so I grew up in the church. I saw a lot of disease. I mean, we had the weekly prayer list, right? Yeah. Sister so-and-so has this, brother so-and-so has that, sister so-and-so can't be here because she's on bed rest or whatever. And there's so much sickness, and I think that our focus it's once again, we're mind, body, soul, right? We're this collective, and we're just focusing just on spiritual. And we have to do the work, the physical work. And I think fasting is a beautiful marrying of those different dimensions of us. It helps you holistically, which is why I love it so much. And I wanted to ask you, going into the fast, I know you had mentioned earlier that you just felt led and kind of called to do this. Were there other factors that contributed to you wanting to do a 40-day fast, or just fasting in general?
Absolutely. I believe, and it's funny, as a pastor, you know, we've got a ministry outside on social media, And I get with the positive feedback comes a lot of negative feedback. And, people don't want me to talk about this issue. Hey, just stay in your lane. And usually they're overweight. They're overweight. They're not eating good. They're really convicted. And I'm the punching bag, which is okay. So a couple other factors where I really wanted to help people. Number one, I want to show them you're not going to die. You're actually created to switch energy sources. So and if you look at my fasting video, I show footage from the 1940s and 50s. You can't find any obese person with thousands of people walking around New York. And so with fast food establishments on every corner, social media, we've grown so lazy, and we're actually really damaging our body. And so showing people you're not going to die because, as you know, you switch from glucose that's stored in your muscle and liver, and then you switch to ketone bodies. And I've always struggled with my weight. So I've got a passion to help those people, and I can relate to them. I'm 6'2", and I was 230 pounds. That's 40, 50 pounds overweight, ideal weight. People say there's no way because I don't look it, because I have a history of bodybuilding too, and even steroid use in my 20s, Sustanon and Winstrol and Anadrol, and I know a lot about testosterone and anabolic effects. And so I really wanted to just heal my body. And so I wanted to not only spiritually, but I wanted to heal my body physically and get really deep into autophagy. And my joints felt so much better. Everything was just really repairing itself. And I could have went deeper. But I wanted to use wisdom as well. And so that was the motivating factor, was spiritual. And physically, I could tell my toes were falling asleep. If you look up like the top 6 or 7 indicators of diabetes, top 7 indicators that you might have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, health related. I actually had all 7 of those. And here I am. I know about nutrition. I know about exercise. I know about, high intensity interval training versus cardiovascular versus, how glucose is burned. But here I am, and I'm actually eating pretty healthy. I was eating really healthy. I was just eating too much. And my body was really starting to pay the price. So I had a lot of goals to hit. And I believe spiritually, physically, emotionally, everything benefited from that.
Out of curiosity, can you explain autophagy a little bit?
Yeah, autophagy is actually, I think it was from Japan. He won a Nobel Prize in 2015, 2016. Don't quote me on this, but for actually discovering autophagy. And what autophagy is, the Latin words are autophagy, or self-consuming, consuming self. So we are so incredibly made by God that our body actually, when we fast, it will break down diseased tumors. It will break down diseased cellular structure that's not being used anymore, dead, decaying things. It will begin to consume those. Kind of think of Pac-Man. Pac-Man will go and autophagy now begins to clean, and even your eyesight gets better. Your joints get better because your body's not breaking down your heart and your liver and your spleen, all these things for fuel. That's called starvation. And you don't hit that for quite a while. And your body begins to break down dead and decaying tissues. They call it self-consuming, autophagy. But then you have apoptosis, which is different. That's when your cell basically commits suicide. And because it's dead and decaying. And so all these wonderful things begin to work deep into the cellular level, into the mitochondria. Your cells begin to actually rejuvenate and get rid of the dead and diseased tissue. It's a wonderful thing. And actually autophagy begins, I think probably they're finding within 20, 24 hours of missing food. And then growth hormone elevated, which is great. The thing we don't want, which is insulin, is decreased, and glucagon, which is a good hormone, is actually increased. And so all these wonderful things happen fasting. What happens to most people is they stop too soon. If you can get through that 3rd or that 4th day, that's when deep healing really you're not hungry anymore. I mean, I was cooking lasagna and grass-fed beef for my family and spaghetti and all kinds of wonderful things, and just having water. It looks good, but the desire is gone because that hunger hormone is actually decreased after a certain amount of time. Here comes the hunger. Well, after about 10 minutes, drink some water, it subsides. So it goes in waves. And to be honest with you, Chris, the power of the made up mind is, I think that's 80% of it. knowing I got to get through this. I have 5 kids at home. So, I mean, it wasn't like I could go to a fasting retreat. I get jealous of those people who can go to a fasting retreat, whether it's True North. I talked to Dr. Alan Goldhammer a little bit too during this, that's wonderful. But for most of us, we need solutions that work at home. Mm-hmm. So I made up my mind, if I have to have a little juice, to not snap at the kids and not be in my bed all day and to, I would do that. So it was something that worked for me. And I went really deep, but but again, we want to use wisdom. We should probably throw this out here as a disclaimer that, of course, talk to your healthcare provider, talk to your doctor before starting any type of diet related changes and fasting. But if I took a group of 100 people, 90 of them could fast. The problem is 90 of them have excuses why they shouldn't fast. Mm-hmm. I didn't do it for many years because I had borderline hypoglycemia and I start to get, a little shaky, or the problem I came to find out was I was addicted to sugar. So I was avoiding this wonderful gift of fasting and still caving into my favorite addiction, sugar. And eventually, fasting really helps to clean your body and stabilize. I mean, we could talk a lot about, how much muscle is lost, how much does it mess up your metabolism, how do you refeed to avoid refeeding syndrome? I mean, there's just so much to it. But I think that answers the gist of your question.
Absolutely. You actually answered another question, which someone had asked, what day does it get easier? And I think that there's some things you could do in preparation for fasting to make it easier. So when we talk about the hunger pangs, we're talking about ghrelin. So the ghrelin production, when ghrelin production spikes, the hunger is there, and that's where you associate those hunger pangs. But you can reduce ghrelin production as you prepare for fasting by changing your habits. Yeah. So, reducing how much food you intake leading up to your fast, eating more high water content stuff that's a lot lighter and easier for the body to digest will help. And I always tell people you want to fast for at least 3 days. Now we have many different programs and things where people could fast for, 24 hours, 48 hours. But I really like, someone says, hey, Chris, what's the minimum amount of time to fast to kind of get the best benefit? I would say at least 3 days. And it's to your point. It's all of the benefits that you get from just giving your body enough time to kind of engage in that process of fasting.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say with, the really, I'm just going to shoot everyone straight. Fasting is actually not that hard. The reason it's so hard is because we're coming off of our favorite addictions. Right. We're having withdrawals. So before fasting, if you can get off of caffeine and nicotine and alcohol and processed foods and sugar, and then incorporate intermittent fasting where you don't eat until late. I mean, I can go 24 hours without even eating. I'm almost going to do it today, actually. I mean, it's just your body's already adjusted. So you can actually, you can prepare the body, and then it's just a natural thing. Wait a minute, my carbohydrates are depleted. Here's a little hunger, but you can deal with it because you're not overcoming caffeine addiction and sugar addiction. That's really why it's so hard. Because you're jonesing. You got to have that hit. You got to have that drink. And so people can take a week or 10 days. It's going to be hard, but it really helps to fast. And your body is switching energy sources. So you might have that keto flu. You might not feel that well, but I looked at as, hey, I'm not feeling well. That's a good thing because my body's repairing. Mm-hmm. Where in the past I'd say, oh, I don't feel good, I need to eat something. Right. But granted, you have to use wisdom. I mean, I know what, low potassium looks like, low sodium, low magnesium looks like with heart palpitations or, throwing up. And so you have to use wisdom in there. And I would take a multi-mineral, trace minerals into my water sometimes just to keep those balanced. But you have to be careful because remember, our body is stored. We have enough vitamins and mineral actually stored in our body. I don't know if people realize that or not. But in our fat cells and different things, we have zinc and magnesium, potassium. We have these things already stored. So as your body's breaking it down, your body knows the amount it needs. And if you start you just start mega dosing of vitamins and minerals and magnesium and all these things, you could actually really cause a little bit of harm to yourself. And then, at some point we can talk about refeeding if you like, but I don't know how many people really go past, if I don't go over 5 days, I don't worry too much about refeeding. It's when you go past that, you really have to worry about it. And I didn't do it perfect. I mean, the first day I did really good, 500, 600, 700 calories, not too bad. And then the next day, oh my, it's like you awoke the sleeping giant. And so really the discipline it takes to start the fast is the same amount of discipline you're going to need to end the fast. And you really have to prepare your mind for that. And I didn't end up in the hospital. I didn't get really sick. I could just tell I didn't feel good for 4, 5, 6 days because I think my electrolytes, you have to remember now you're spiking glucose and now you're spiking insulin again. Now, so you really have to ease into this like the digestive system has been asleep and you're just kind of like almost a new infant baby. You're just slowly, I would say if to go as long as I went, you really need a week. To refeed. And I didn't do that correctly. And if I could go back, that would be one thing I would definitely change.
When it comes to so I package prep, the fast itself, and the refeed all together.
Yeah, it has to be.
You just want to be in that mindset. So even when people do shorter fasts, as practice, I will tell them always refeed. Because also the other thing too is depending on the type of fast that you're performing, like let's say if you're doing a dry fast, I need people to be in the mindset of refeeding because your dry fastings are going to be shorter typically. And you want to make sure that you come off a dry fast with water and you have to kind of like do that mental work. So I always tell people, hey, just refeed after every fast, prep before every fast, even if it's 24 hours, and it'll kind of help build that mental fortitude you talked about. Now, you did mention that, the refeed syndrome. So I get this question a lot about refeed syndrome. If you want to dive a little bit more into that, I'm sure people would love to hear your points.
Yeah, I've done a lot of studying on that. Actually, I wish I could have followed my own advice, but and maybe we should interject too briefly so people know dry fasting is actually when you don't even have water. And some people don't even go swimming or take a bath or a shower because your skin, can't absorb some of that water. I don't get that hardcore, but I have done well over, 15 hours or so of dry fasting. And the thought process is now you have no water, so your fat cells explode literally much, much quicker. Autophagy, they say, is increased by 3 times. However, it's an area you have to be careful in. And I don't know how long you recommend, and I don't want to overstep that, but I wouldn't go 2-3 days, with more than dry fasting. But that's really can go deeper. I try, if a person's just getting started, I usually don't recommend it because they're going to have a hard enough time with fasting alone. But I think 12 hours, 5 at night till I get up at 5 in the morning, that dry fasting time, it seems like your body's just even breaking down things even more. But here's refeeding is so important because here's the key with refeeding. Most of you, I'm assuming, are fasting because of lifestyle changes, health issues, taking care of your body. So we don't fast and now I get back into junk food again. This is actually you're resetting your lifestyle. And so you have to remember refeeding. Oh man, now I can start having pizza again. No, you need to just kind of get that in your mind because now this is my healthy reset. And so refeeding, everything is your digestive system has slowed down. The microbiome that is the gut bacteria has, in many ways, it has stopped, and maybe a different type of microbiome now is growing because there's no more access to food. Not only that, your insulin level has completely slowed down. Your potassium and magnesium, your heart rate, your blood pressure has slowed down. Your body is now adjusting. And if you just go and throw in, it's almost like dumping a truckload of wood onto a small fire. You would quench that fire, you destroy that fire. And so your body, the best thing for refeeding is, okay, maybe a little bit of orange juice, or a couple hours later, a section of an orange, a couple hours later, a section of an orange, a couple hours later, maybe some bone broth. You're actually working your body into it. And you said it perfect, Chris. You have to, when you talk about fasting, you have to incorporate the pre-fast, the fast, and then the refeeding. Let that be your fast. You got to factor in all that time. So I don't have a lot of meetings when I'm refeeding. I don't have any type of stressful events when possible, because your body, and you have to say, okay, this is not a time to eat. This is actually a time to refeed slowly. And then, depending on how long you fast, You can start to incorporate maybe some steamed vegetables the next day, or, but I would avoid, meat and dairy, hard, complex carbs, sugar, desserts, all that, any type of junk food, fast food. That's just really it's going to hurt your body. You've done all this to help your body, and that's going to really hurt it. So that's refeeding in a nutshell. Something to remember is if you go 5 days, I would probably take that next day to refeed. If you go 7 days, maybe 2 days. If you go 15 days, maybe 4 or 5 days. If you do a 21-day water fast, I would be doing a good 4 or 5 days of refeeding. And then for some out there, 40-day water fast, they recommend at least 10 days. Alan Goldhammer, Daniel Pompa, who else is a lot of the fasting experts, Peter Attia. They recommend quite a lengthy period of refeeding, or you'll avoid. People have actually ended up in the hospital with that, because you just, your blood, your insulin spikes, and your body's just, it's almost like think of a drug addict overdosing.
Very good analogy.
You're overdosing on nutrients that are great in small amounts. Alcohol, for example, you could, would work the same way. Just, okay, small amount, no big deal. But you drink 6 beers, it's a big deal. So that's right. You want to be very careful. And here's the key: if you can remain self-disciplined. Okay, let's say, oh man, I shouldn't have eaten so much. Okay, get back on track. Don't eat again for 4, 5, 6 hours later. Have a little bit. But if you can stay self-disciplined, guess what? That discipline falls into normal life when you're over your fast. You can turn down that fast food. You can turn down that destructive drink. You can, and you've built the self-discipline. That's what I teach, from a biblical perspective, is the importance of self-discipline, disciplining self. And it can be done. And we've just caved in to everything from, there's a Starbucks on every corner, fast food on every corner. Just in my area, they put in the shopping center, there's Panda Express, there's McDonald's, there's Subway, there's a Mexican restaurant, and there's one other fast food outlet, and there's maybe a donut shop. And there's only like 12 stores there. And so, the lines are full, and you see, we are dying physically in our nation. We are a nation addicted to all these things. Now, we could get into a whole nother topic on the food industry and how they actually have scientists working for them who will get the right exact taste to just draw you in. It's that perfect point. They call it the pleasure principle. And just that right amount of sugar. Why is there sugar in bread?
Exactly.
Sugar in all these cereals. Why is there sugar in ketchup? And so we are addicted is really what's happening. And we are addicted, and then we try to fast. We blame the fasting when we really should be blaming the addictions. Right,
and that's the interesting thing that I learned through my fasting journey. The more I fasted, the more I ate well. I adopted an alkaline diet early on. Yeah, the easier fasting became. The easier everything I was doing, because the body will adapt to it. So a lot of people think, oh, you've been doing this whatever for a year, this diet, this fasting for a year. Right. That must be just the biggest struggle. No, it actually gets easier and easier. And it's very empowering, right. Being able to say, no, I'm not going to, like, McDonald's doesn't entice me at all. No, like not at the least bit. And that wasn't always the case, but It takes you being diligent about, making better choices every day. And it's really the small things. Hey, somebody's got some extra fries or something. No, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, you just start with those small incremental steps.
Well, Chris, this should help too on this point. Not to interrupt you, but I think it's important that your audience needs to know you can fall forward. You can get back up. I don't do things perfectly. I mess up. I have pizza now and then or something now and then. But really, for me, it's a fasted lifestyle. It's a lifestyle of me telling the body no instead of the body telling me what to do. Think about it. We get up, the body tells us, go to Starbucks, go to Dunkin' Donuts, get a donut. Now it tells me to go get some chocolate. Now it tells me to go here. Now it tells me to eat too much, drink too much. So we have to start disciplining the body and telling it no. And what it does is, like you said, discipline produces more discipline. I can turn down Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, pizza. I love, people won't believe this, but I'm craving right now more a big colorful salad with freshly cooked salmon right on top with some vinaigrette dressing. I mean, that sounds good to me. Why? Because I've been feeding on that all week or all month. And what you feed on, you become. And same thing spiritually, as I'm feeding on God, as I'm praying, as I'm seeking his word and worshiping, I want more of God. And the same thing, same thing happens with food as well. So people need to be encouraged. Yes, it's a battle. It is hell sometimes to fight these addictions, but you can overcome it. If you're hooked on coffee, begin having half decaf, and wind yourself down and get off of these destructive things. But if, I mean, in my case too, as a pastor, if somebody feels God has told them to go cold turkey, just starting tomorrow, I need to fast, then so be it as well. You know, I've seen people not have hardly any withdrawals. Is that amazing? And then I've seen other people like myself. It's like a drug addict coming off of something. Off. But I want to, before I forget, I want to springboard off of something you said. If you think of how we were created, how did God create us? We should be able to switch from glucose to ketos pretty easily. Let's say, hunter gatherers, whatever, we find something, and now we might not have food for a few days. Mm-hmm. And so our body can switch to ketogenic, the ketone bodies, it can switch pretty easily. And we actually don't get tired and sick when that happens. We actually have more energy and more mental clarity.
Right.
To find things. So it's actually, we were actually designed to fast. We were designed, even intermittent fasting, they say, well, it's just a trend. Well, maybe, but it's also, we shouldn't have to, we don't need to pig out every 3 hours. And that's what I was taught in the health and fitness industry 25 years ago is, every 3 hours, keep your metabolic rate up, and you got to do this. And, we've really reversed a lot of our thinking in that area. But
it's kind of a trick. The more you eat, it keeps your metabolic rate up, but the rate is up, spikes for like 30 minutes and it goes right back to normal. So it's kind of, when it comes to science, and this is why we tell people that they need to research for themselves, we can't just simply trust what people say. There's a saying that, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. However, numbers can be manipulated to present a false narrative. And we have to understand that. But you're absolutely correct. Fasting is it's only in recent history that we've been eating this much. I mean, even if you go back 100 years, even 100 years, you didn't have the fast food restaurants like we have now. Maybe you ate 3 square meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You did it at home. Mm-hmm. You didn't have all the snacking. Now I'm eating while I'm traveling. Now I'm eating while I'm in between meetings and all of this, nonsense.
Well, it's funny too, Chris, you'll know this term as I studied, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, because I like to study on revival and spiritual awakenings. And of course, this issue, they used to, I don't want to offend anyone because this can apply to me too, but they used to use a word often called gluttony. We don't use that very much anymore, but that's 100, 150 years ago. That's what it was called. It was like, hey, you're being gluttonous. We're abusing the body. We need to really rein it in right now and take control of this area. Because for me, when I'm out of control and when I'm eating too much, my sleep is hurt. I'm not feeling good physically or spiritually. I'm not mentally alert. I'm kind of depressed a little bit because I know I should be doing better and should be taking care of myself better. And so it really affects, I think, all of us, all of our body, soul, spirit, and mentally, emotionally, everything is affected by losing this battle on a continual basis. So on one hand, I want to encourage people. It's not about perfection or I wouldn't be here. It's about direction. What direction do you take, 80, 90% of your life? That's really how you get to your journey or finish your journey well.
Yeah. Do the right things more often than you do the wrong things.
Yes.
And it's okay. I tell people all the time, look, I'm not perfect. I don't know where people get this idea that I'm perfect from, but I also feel like when you look at nature is all about balance. So, perfection, the way that we view perfection, this flawless mastery, you make no mistakes, that's not even a natural thing because nature is all about balance. You have the yin and yang, light and dark, positive and negative. Even when you look at the cells, structured water has a negative and a positive charge to it. Yeah. And that's how the cells absorb water. It's not about just all positive or whatever. Jack O'Connor asks, I've been trying to do intermittent fasting every month. Is it good to fast for a couple of days? So he's having trouble intermittent fasting, but is it good to fast for a couple of days?
Well, I would say absolutely. And the reason intermittent fasting is hard sometimes is, especially if you're not prepared for it, because basically, okay, I didn't have breakfast. It's 10 o'clock, I'm hungry. It's 11 o'clock, I'm hungry. It's 12. And it's like you're fighting this desire to just want to eat. And so intermittent fasting, I encourage people to start with 12 hours, and then start with 14, then start with 16, and start, you can train your body. And so then at some point, if you can get through that first day, there's also a lot of motivation. I forgot to mention that once I got through like 3 or 4 days, you're down 8 pounds and you're down. It's not about the weight, or for me, It was about the weight, but weight was a nice benefit and it's motivating. And so I recommend, if you're having a hard time intermittent fasting, I would definitely advise fasting. Here's why. Here's a struggle I've had with intermittent fasting. It's like, okay, I'll wait to eat, but then I'll eat too much. Or now I've eaten some nuts. Now I want some more nuts. Now I want this, and so you keep that hunger hormone alive. And it's really, to me, when people go on restricted diets, 1,000 calories, that to me is harder than water fasting.
Yeah,
because you're constantly keeping that hunger alive. You're keeping it sparked, and so it's a continual battle.
I can't remember the name of the author of this quote, but they said that eating creates appetite. So the more you eat, the more you want to eat. So that's part of the refeeding syndrome and that whole idea. So we have to. It's that mental piece is so important, but when I talk to people, especially about like their refeeding habits, and you mentioned this earlier, if you put good stuff in, that's what you'll crave.
Right.
And so that's the greatest benefit of starting well, especially when you refeed. And then the other thing too is you get to avoid the inflammation and the extra stress that goes on your organs, and you're not undoing any of the work that you did, because one thing people got to understand is you put your body in a very sensitive state when you fast.
Yes.
So you got to understand, it's like you said, a newborn baby. You want to take care of it and coddle it and not abuse it by going to the Chinese buffet.
Oh, man. Well, Chris, you know what? That you just made me think of another great point. This can motivate people during the refeeding process. Did you know, and I mean, I did a lot of research on this. I don't know if you have either, but it is actually possible. Even though you lose a lot of weight, you're probably only losing about a half a pound of fat per day. A pound of fat, 3,500 calories, your base metabolic rate, mine probably dropped to 1,800 calories. And so you're about a half a pound a day. If you do the refeeding correctly, you don't have to gain any fat back.
Right.
And if you do this, that should be motivating. Hey, I'm going to keep my caloric intake down and reasonable. I'm going to eat healthy, God-given food, and I'm going to gain back the weight slowly. Don't freak out when there's 5, 6, 7 pounds quickly, because a lot of that is glycogen. Now your muscle bellies are full of water. It's not fat. Your digestive tract is getting some fiber and content back. And really, fat, you can maintain your fat loss from here on out. You don't have to gain that back. And I know there's different things on this, but I truly believe you do lose possibly a little bit of muscle during that, because glyconeogenesis can take place where your body needs glycogen quickly and it takes from your muscle. So in my case, if I was staying busy and active, I could burn a little bit of muscle in that process, because the keto, when your body switches over, it's not a quick type of energy process. If it needs quick energy, let's say I'm sprinting or jogging, it could break down the muscle for the energy for that movement. So, I try not to worry about it too much. I don't think I lost too much muscle. The main thing is fat by far. And you can be strategic about that. But anyway, I think that's how that works too with refeeding, how it can be very motivating. Hey, I'm gaining weight back, but I don't have to gain fat back. The way you're going to gain fat back is if you eat bad food and too much of it. Now, I know there's a big debate about there. We shouldn't have to count calories in it. Eat less, move more. No, it's not about that. It's more about hormones. And there's a lot of truth in all of that. But the bottom line is, if you're eating more energy than you're burning, you will store it. I mean, there's just no way around that. It doesn't matter how your hormone levels and all things are. Granted, hormones do play a role. If you have 800 reading of testosterone and I only have 300, you're going to be able to burn more calories than me and
Mm.
maintain your muscle mass because of testosterone.
Right.
But I don't think we can believe this, hey, as long as it's healthy, eat whatever you want. You don't have to worry about calories. I mean, if I eat a cup of nuts, I just ate 1,000 calories. That's gonna be hard to maintain my goal if I'm taking in too many calories, because what happens when we take in too much energy? Calorie is just a unit of energy. So if I take in too much energy, it's going to be stored as body fat, and that's just the way it is. That's just basic kinesiology.
Yeah, nutriently dense foods are always touted as a good thing. And
Yes.
now when you talk about like superfoods and all of the marketing propaganda around it, it's just like eat superfoods, but you can consume too much. And I say this all the time. So, eating in moderation, not change. We got to shift this idea that we have to eat every 3 hours, because that's what we've all been taught.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was growing up, the food pyramid, which was absolutely trash. I think that the people who developed the food pyramid recently made a statement saying, "Hey, you know what? It was garbage. We messed up, right?"
Right.
But my thing is that at the current time, that science, whatever that science was, that's what everybody believed. That made sense. But I feel like the outlets that are providing us this information, these governmental agencies or these affiliations, these government agencies have, they're going to continue to provide false information. I really like to do my own research, and as it relates to like muscle loss, my brother and I, we both did long fasting stints. I did a 3-month process. He did maybe 6 months. And what we noticed was the muscle changes. So muscle mass definitely goes down. However, I noticed that my strength was maintained extremely well.
Yep.
The way you broke it down, I didn't test like the quick movements and all of that. I was just kind of at the gym lifting. But I noticed little, actually, I didn't notice any strength loss at all.
Yeah.
My brother noticed that when he would build muscle fasting, he was stronger. However, he did not bulk up at all. The only time you could even see his gains is if he was tensing. Otherwise, he looked very small, very trim. Back home, we used to call those farmer muscles, just long, strong. Yeah. I had a question. How do you combat not going number 2 while fasting? Is that bad news? Is that bad? And how many times should we be aiming to release waste?
Well, that's a good question. Before I get to that, I think it's important too, because this is pretty big. People, one of the big questions is, can I keep exercising? Can I work out? At its core, fasting is a time of rest and rejuvenation. So if somebody is trying to get rid of stage 4 colon cancer or diabetes, or I would say rest. But if it's for fat loss or you have other goals, and I think a little bit of exercise. The Buchheimer Clinic in Germany, I don't know if you've ever followed them. It's about a 100-year-old clinic. They allow 200 calories a day, a little bit of juice, a little bit of soup, and they actually work out for an hour in the morning. And the results are phenomenal. So it depends what your goals are. And so that's why it's hard to tell, here's exactly what you need to do.
Right.
If I'm talking to a mom with 3 kids at home, I'm going to encourage her, hey, maybe have a little bit of juice or something with your kids. At least you can get through the night. You can get them to bed. You got to do what works for you. But if I'm talking to somebody who's just got a report from the doctor, they've got some lymph nodes that are possible cancerous. And man, I would just get into deep autophagy. I would rest and let the body just really heal itself. But when it comes to number 2 is the body is, again, how we were created. There's people go back and forth on enemas or not. I mean, I'm just believe how the body was created, and God knows what he's doing. And usually what will happen is after a few days, bowel movements will cease to exist, because if you've got rid of everything that has been stored in the digestive tract, everything has been broken down. And you can take some, there's some salt and water combinations or magnesium citrate, I think it is. But that didn't work too well for me because it made me kind of sick. So I would the body will do what the body needs to do. So after a few days, there's no bowel movements. Let's say you're going a week, maybe you'll have a bowel movement every week as your body begins to maybe break down and digest some things. So that was never something I was worried about, because the body knows much better than I do on how it works. And there are, Herbert Shelton to McFadden, back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s on enemas. There's debate on that too. And, I would just let the body do what the body does. But I'm not against that. If somebody wants to do that, there's some benefits as well. But there's also, I look at design. How was the body designed? Was it designed 2 weeks in to have, a half gallon of water dumped into your digestive tract with coffee or chamomile or all these enema ingredients, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. I just don't know if you have to do it. Maybe do a little bit of research, but that's to answer her question, it's normal, after a day or two, but then after that, some people have it every 3 days, 7 days. Some people go a couple weeks. I remember, what was his name? David Blaine, that I guess, like a magician out of New York, does some crazy things. He was up in that contraption for 44 days. And he said he got it all out prior to that, and he didn't have any bowel movements at all. And so it's really let nature dictate when that would happen and how it happens.
Right. Yeah. I get that question a lot about bowel movements. I'm kind of in the same place with you as it relates to enemas. I think enemas they can be beneficial.
Yeah.
It's important not to overdo it because it is unnatural. But sometimes people will feel constipated. And that's typically when I get these questions. It's like, hey, I haven't had a bowel movement for, 3-4 days. I feel constipated. And in that case, I think it's okay to use something to help the body. Ultimately, having a bowel movement is going to benefit you. So a water enema, I like to use hexane-free castor oil. Certain things maybe even make people more bloated. Yeah. Recently, we started an affiliation with a company called the Root brand, and they have a product. It's called Relife Greens. It's like a fiber, almost like a fiber supplement, but it's an amazing product. It's very easy on the body, and that helps you to have bowel movements just like more naturally.
True.
So there's a couple different options for that, but for the most part, if you just feel fine and you're just worried because you just haven't had a bowel movement, it's likely just because the bowels are going to slow down when you start fasting.
True.
I had another question here from Jack. I'm gonna put it on the screen here. Shane, if people undereat, their metabolism tends to slow and hold onto fat. How does the process differ in the body when it comes to fasting?
Okay. Oh, so he's asking the difference between fasting and a low calorie diet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and again, it would depend on how many calories in the calorie restricted diet, male, female, how much weight are they trying to lose? What are their goals? But just as a general statement, when you restrict calories, let's say I go to 1,500 calories a day and, or 1,800, let's say, and over the course of a week, I'm getting some results, I'm losing some weight. But what happens is your body says, okay, we've got to slow down our metabolic rate, which is the rate at which your body burns energy. So that slows down now to meet this new nutritional deficit or this calorie deficit. So now you're down here, your metabolic rate is down here. And if you stop that, and this is what happens with like The Biggest Loser on TV. This is why most people gain their weight back. Their metabolic rate is dropped now down here, which I don't think it drops. It depends on what study you read, but you could drop a good 500 calories a day metabolically, and that's a lot over the course of a month. It can really make a difference. So, and now you start, okay, I feel better. I want to start eating again, and you start eating too much, and now your metabolic rate is down here. And now you're eating too much, and you begin to store that body fat back because your body's like, I need to store this. And so what I tell people on calorie restricted diets is you can really switch it up, 1,800. Then maybe I'll have a feasting day of 3,000, and then maybe on that day or the next day, I'll go on an hour and a half bike ride. I'll just burn 1,500 calories. And so you're keeping the body kind of guessing. It doesn't know what it's doing. And that's why they even recommend with meat, dairy, carnivore, vegan, keto. We can get into that, paleo at some point maybe, but that's why they try to switch some of those things around is so your body is constantly adjusting to it. Now with fasting, it just your metabolic rate drops to what you need per day. And so let's say you're not eating anything at all, your metabolism slows down, your heart rate slows down. Mine dropped almost 20 beats a minute. So you're talking 25, 30,000 less beats a day. So it's very healthy as well. So, but now my metabolic rate is down here. So now how do I not gain back weight? Well, you have to be strategic and understand how your metabolism has been affected. So for example, it's been a month and a half since I ended my fast. I've gained back about 15 pounds of the 37 lost. And how have I done that is once I start, the refeeding is over, I'm still exercising, I'm bike riding, I'm being selective. I'm not just pigging out. I'm not eating late at night. You have to be strategic because now this new reset, I call it a reset, a metabolic reset. You don't know exactly where it's at, but there are things you can do. In other words, and that's why eating every 3 hours, the reason that was popular is because digestion of food takes up 50% of our body's energy. So I just ate, let's say 500 calories, but am I going to burn 500 more calories metabolically? And so I think the thinking was a little bit flawed there, because if you're consuming too much, that metabolic rate increase probably won't matter too much. But sorry, I'm getting out on a rabbit trail. To answer his question, yes, both calorie restricted diets and fasting will lower your metabolism because your body's adjusting now to this new thing. And especially when fasting, you have to remember this is a reset. This is something where your body is readjusting. So you can't go back to your old ways. You're actually trying to get away from your old ways. That was the whole point of fasting, is to make a lifestyle change, a lifestyle difference. So yes, we have to be strategic. Let's say, I could eat 3,000 calories when I was younger. I can't do that anymore. And so you have to be strategic on how you do that. So to answer his question, yes, they both drop. You just have to make sure you don't just go right back into your normal. But to answer his question at a different level is your metabolic rate can get back to normal, but it can take a few weeks, maybe even a month. It can get back to normal. Okay, now you're eating consistently, you're intermittent fasting, you're exercising, you're walking instead of watching TV all day, and you're eating high density nutritious foods. Chris, that's why high density nutritious green God-given foods are so important, because it satisfies the vitamin and mineral deficit. It satisfies the body, and then you're not as hungry because now you're satisfying all these nutritional needs. So yes, they will both slow down your metabolism quite a bit.
Yeah, to that point, I did a 14-day raw challenge. I think Steven did 21 days.
That's hard.
What we noticed was I was actually overeating really easy because the food was so nutriently dense. And your mind is used to eating stuff that's not as dense, so you could you could eat more of it. It was great for me because I was able to begin the process of training myself not to overeat. So for those who deal with overeating, that actually might be a good exercise to do, but it really does work. And what I will say is there may be a period of time where your body needs to kind of adjust. If you're just eating fast food all the time and you go to eating raw, it might take a little time to adjust. I don't eat that way. I didn't have that experience, so your experience might be different. But I think that would be a great way to, deal with overeating. We had another question. Let's see. Oops, wait a minute. The chat moved on me. Hold on. Okay, see, Jennifer. Ultimately, my question is, what kind of fast does a person with a mood disorder on medication utilize to lose weight and get closer to God?
Yeah, it's mainly, would you say she's probably talking about, say, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia? Let's just assume that. And in my books on fasting, again, I should mention westsidechristianfellowship.org. They can download them for free. My books on fasting there. But I mentioned Dr. Yuri, I can't pronounce his last name, from Russia. He would actually cure those with psychotic illnesses by fasting, because the body was able to cleanse and readjust. And a lot of times we don't know what is happening. Things break the blood-brain barrier and begin to affect us mentally. So to answer her question, I would recommend a water fasting that is deep healing water fasting that can really lift. A lot of times, people don't want to talk about this either. We just want a pill to fix my problem. But a lot of depression has to do with imbalances, chemical imbalances, hormone imbalances that are occurring in your body. And so a lot of, you mentioned fast food, and people don't realize what they're getting in fast food, everything from sodium nitrates to additives and preservatives and food coloring and artificial this and GMO, genetically modified now, where food is actually, the genes are spliced with genes from glyphosate and Roundup. So they call it Roundup Ready. And so we're taking a lot of these things into our body, and it's really throwing off our hormone levels off kilter. And so I would start with that. But to answer your question, I would encourage a water fast for sure. And you say, hey, I'm 2 days into this, I can't continue. Have a little grapefruit juice. It's low calorie. And then see if that helps you get to the next day. And now on day 4, I don't know if I can continue. Have a little bit of juice. Have some bone broth. Keep that going. But it takes quite a while to go deep into this. And on my other videos, I didn't know Chris's audience here. I talk a lot more about, you mentioned drawing closer to God. What it does spiritually, first and foremost for me, is what you're doing is you're denying the flesh. And this flesh is being denied. And therefore, the Bible talks, it mentions fasting many times in the Bible. Ezra, Nehemiah, David, in the New Testament, Old Testament. Jesus even fasted 40 days in the wilderness before he began his ministry. And so we see it's a suppressing of the fleshly appetites. And there's a deeper connection with God as believers. And so that's very important. They work together. But the power of the made-up mind, and again, of course, talk to your doctor, talk to your physician. Jennifer, if you're on medication, you have to be careful too. Say you're on Xanax or Vicodin, or what are the ramifications going to be? And also, if you're on medication, let's say for high blood pressure, and you jump into a fast, be careful, because the fast lowers your high blood pressure. And if you're on Coumadin, blood thinner, or blood pressure medication that lowers it, that double combo is going to really put you in a dangerous level with blood pressure. Yeah. So what I do with the physician is I say, here's what I'm doing. Would you monitor me? Don't ask them about fasting, because most of them only have about 4 hours. That's right, 4 hours of training on how the body works as they're studying to get their medical degree. And even my physician will tell me he doesn't know a lot how the body works, because they were educated to, hey, this is happening. How can I get rid of this pain? How can I
pharmacology
put over it? Yeah, they don't get deep into how the body actually works for healing to take place.
Yeah, that was something I was actually shocked about. When you talk about nutrition and, healing the body, you just assume doctors are taught this, and they're not.
Yeah, no.
It's absolutely absurd how little education they have. And I always tell people, when you have a legal matter, right? You have a legal matter. You don't go to your mechanic and say, hey, what do you think about this legal matter? You go to a freaking lawyer. Right. So why are you talking? And this is the misconception. You don't talk to doctors about wellness. You go to a wellness professional. These are healthcare professionals. They deal with pharmacology. They deal with treatment. They're not in the business of healing the body. They're going to give you a pill to treat you. And people just need to understand, it's not a good or bad thing. It's just, it's different. You don't go to a mechanic for legal matter.
And for example, you talk to most physicians, hey, I came in, I'm 50 pounds overweight, I think I have type 2 diabetes, they'll give you medication. Why are you going to, and actually insulin's the problem. So you're going to go, now your body is so much carbohydrates and glucose, your body is resistant to insulin. That's the problem. So you have to take insulin to put this hormone back in your body. Why not telling the person, hey, let's change your lifestyle and let's fix the problem, instead of giving you, because most type 2 diabetes patients will never recover on medication.
Right.
It's a disease that it's not curable on medication. It's only curable by reversing what causes it.
Right.
And I can give you so many examples. I went into my physician in 2015. He said, Shane, you need high blood pressure medication. Your blood pressure is too high. I said, wait a minute. Did the nurse use the big cuff? He goes, oh, no, I don't think she did. So they used a big cuff. Oh, you're fine. You don't need medication.
Exactly.
My daughter needed my 5-year-old needed her adenoid and tonsils moved. She was having removed. She's having a hard time breathing, and it was inflamed. And the doctor said, we got to get her down to Children's Hospital soon and get these things removed. I said, okay, hold on. Give me 5 days. Got her off of all sugar, gave her a nap every afternoon. 5 days, 6 days later, breathing is perfectly fine. I can give you another example. They wanted to prescribe prescribed this testosterone, a performance enhancing drug. All we did was change the person's lifestyle and his eating habits, get off alcohol, and that testosterone it increases big time. Because if you give yourself a synthetic testosterone, as a male, you're going to stop producing testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
Your body's, and then so. How's that going to work? And so
you're on it now. You got to keep taking it.
Yeah. And I love physicians. We have physicians go to our church, nurses go to our church. We need them. But if you're in a car accident or you need some type of surgery, for sure. But if you're talking about repairing the body, and you know what, let's be a little controversial. They're not allowed to tell you a lot of things like that. A friend of mine is an oncologist, he's an oncologist, and helps a lot of cancer patients. He says, Shane, if I tell them what you're telling them, I could lose my license, even though I know it will help them.
Yep.
Even how absurd is that, Chris? I know that if I recommend fasting, man, I get some complaints at the Board of Medicine. I could lose my license.
Yep.
So
I know doctors who have lost their license.
Yes. Well, fasting, you would lose your license in the 80s. Listen to Dr. Alan Goldhammer's testimony. He had to go to court in the 1980s because he was recommending fasting. And it's just, it's this, let's take this pill, let's take this thing. And anyway, I don't want to I'm getting on a rabbit trail on that one, but
no, it's a touchy subject when it comes to that. I think that people, ultimately you just need to make a decision.
Yes.
Do you want to make the lifestyle changes? If you do, then you can get a much better outcome. If you don't want to make the changes, then you do have our medical system. So, okay. So Jennifer, the lady who asked about the mood disorder, she said it was bipolar. Just want to let you know it's bipolar.
But I should tell, Jennifer, anyone else listening, we're not saying, and I know you're not saying fasting is a cure. All it does is it stops the production of food and chemicals and things that cause 90% of our problem, and allows the body now to use that energy instead to begin to heal itself. And so with bipolar, some people I recommend, hey, if they need medication to balance out that serotonin level, that's totally up to them. I'm not against that whatsoever, but I would look at first how the body is being affected physically with what we eat and our lifestyle choices and things like that. And fasting just allows your body to now reset and readjust. Why do your joints feel better? Mm-hmm. Why many times does your eyesight feel better? Why? Because you're getting rid of a lot of the toxins that have been causing the damage.
If you have a group of workers, right? Like, let's just imagine these construction workers in your body, and you want them to complete this task, but you keep giving them all these side missions to do. Hey, I need you to do this. Hey, I need you to do this. It's going to take a very long time to complete the primary task, or maybe they won't complete it at all. Yep. Fasting frees up that time and allows them to just work on that task of healing the body and restoring the body and balancing hormones and all of these things. And fasting is just an amazing approach to dealing with a lot of different things without having to specifically target. Because I think a lot of times we're trying to target, how can I fix my thyroid? Because my thyroid isn't working. Well, what's causing the disruption? What's causing it to be overproductive or underproduction? So we did have another question. This question is kind of, I guess, for both. It's to me, but I'm gonna ask you as well. I'll give my opinion. Distilled water, mineral water, or tap water, is it okay? So I would say that distilled water is my recommendation. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I recommend distilled water, but distilled water, number one, it's pure water. So we need to understand that, because people think it's some weird thing. It's just pure water. And the reason I recommend it is because if you go and buy spring water, which is the traditionally recommended water, you don't know what they're putting in the water. They add minerals, they add stuff to it sometimes, or sometimes they're just taking tap water and filtering it. And so at least with the distillation process, all that stuff is removed. And then if you want to add your own minerals to it, you know what's being put in there. So that's my recommendation. I like distilled water. Shane, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't disagree. Here's why there's a debate. Distilled water also removes the trace minerals. There's no trace minerals. So if you have very clean mineral water or even reverse osmosis, very clean water, it has the minerals in it, the trace minerals. And usually, let's say a running stream off of a mountain, it's collecting all the dirt and the soot and the things like that. So, and all those minerals are in that water where rainwater doesn't have any. And so distilled is you're not giving your body any trace minerals, which the thought is that's good because now it can pull from its own resources. And again, incorporating autophagy and different things. And so, that one it can go back and forth. It depends on your goal. Personally, I didn't do distilled water because if I went to buy it, it was in a plastic container. And then you have the BPA issues. You have how clean is that water? But if you can heat it up or make your own distilled and very clean, very pure, I think that's a good way to go. Mineral water, who's the company? Where does it come from? What type of container? Tap water is probably not good. The chlorine, the parts per million is high. And then people ask about carbonated. Well, carbonated's not real good on the system, the CO2, the carbonation process. However, I would have a drink of carbonated water a day. It just helped to take that edge off. So I would agree. I would say distilled if possible, or if not, get some very clean water, maybe through they have a lot of these water stores now that have huge purification systems. But I think the only difference between those and distilled is they still maintain the trace minerals in them.
Right, absolutely. And there's I think it'll be an everlasting debate. I would just say definitely stay away from tap water.
Yes.
And definitely stay away from like you know what I mean, those little cheap Brita filters and stuff like that. You want to be more intentional with your water. Let's see. I think we got another one here. Can you still lose weight on a 25-day water fast if you're not busy at all? Like if you're on vacation and just in the bed the whole day, please. So if you're not active, if you're not physically.
Oh yeah, you're gonna lose. Well, here's why. What's her name? I can't quite see her name.
ERAH. Era.
Yeah. Here's why fasting you're gonna lose weight regardless. Is your body, even if you just lay in bed and do nothing, there's something called a basal metabolic rate or base metabolic rate where your eye blinking or your brain thinking or your function, your nervous system or your cardiovascular system, all of that burns energy. So if I just lay in bed and don't do anything, I guarantee I'm burning a good 1,500 calories a day, 1,800 calories a day. And so a pound of fat is 3,500 calories. And so just doing nothing, usually you burn about a pound a day. However, you're going to burn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds. Not a day. You'll burn 2, 3 pounds a day for the first week. I lost probably 12, 15 pounds. But then after that, it slows down. Now that the water stored in your muscle bellies and now your glucose is gone and now your digestive tract is free, you're really burning about a half a pound a day. So it slows down to about a half a pound to a pound a day that you're losing. So to answer your question, yes, you will still lose weight absolutely doing nothing. I would recommend resting and not doing much because when you start to do a lot of activity, again, that's where your body will begin to burn muscle as fuel, gluconeogenesis, creating glucose from nothing. It can take from your body. Think about this. Chris, look at the difference between a long distance runner and a sprinter. Man, that sprinter is built. He's what they call jacked. He looks, I think of Bo Jackson, that was in my day. And but then you look at a long distance runner, it's like, are they sick?
Right.
What's the difference? You see, their body needed to pull from the muscle for fuel because it was long distance. Where the sprinter 100-yard dash, boom, it's quick energy, it's quick burst, it's using that glycogen quickly. So when you get into fasting, if you start to be too active, think of that long distance runner. You can start to pull from some of the muscle. But my thought is, I'll lose a little bit of muscle, but I can build it back. And if you weigh it on the scale, the fasting and all the benefits far, 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 far outweigh maybe losing a pound or two of muscle. As a matter of fact, I believe you can actually build muscle better once your body has been reset and cleansed. And now you can pack on muscle mass, depending on your age. You know, as I get older, that's getting definitely more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was what my brother did. So his physique was amazing. You know, lost 100 pounds, 102 pounds, something like that. Built some amazing
90 days. So he fasted on and off.
He did. Oh, that was Steven. You're talking about Steven. So I'm talking about John. John did, he fasted for 2 months initially, not straight. He was doing, he started with like 8-day fast, might have did a 10-day fast, and then he was doing our 5-2. So fasting for 5 days and then eating for 2 days.
So basically that might be a good strategy for some people listening, is basically he fasted as long as he could and then ate a little bit, kept his calories low, then fasted again, kept his calories somewhat low, then fasted again. So it was a constant hitting of the, and that's why people make the mistake of fasting and then they just go back to their old lifestyle and they gain the weight back because body is not adjusted. So, okay, that makes sense.
Right. Excellent. All right. I want to give you an opportunity to close us out. Any last statements, anything that I know that you had mentioned your church website where people can go and download. You've got 2 books on fasting, was it?
Yeah, I've written 2 books on fasting, a couple books on health and fitness as well. Other books are on spiritual matters from the Christian side of things at westsidechristianfellowship.org, westsidechristianfellowship.org under free ebooks. So now, granted, they're on Amazon, they're on Kindle and different things, but we want to offer free resources, not about the money. So people can just download those for free at our church website. But my final thoughts, Chris, would be, there's so many people watching your feed, and I watched some of your videos have been helpful to me as well. I mean, just motivating me, watching your videos versus, the Food Network, big difference, right? Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, and what you feed on, you will become. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage a person, I know there's people listening right now, 100 pounds overweight, 200 pounds overweight. And I just want to encourage you, it's about getting back up and falling forward. I ate pizza a week and a half ago. I felt terrible. And even before that, I ate, and I was gaining, I was 230 pounds. I should be 185, a healthy 185. And I know depression can beat you up, and I can't do it. I've done too much damage, but trust me, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with that first step. And you can download some of these books, get motivated, fall forward. You don't look at the scale every day, look at it every week, possibly begin to make lifestyle changes. That's the key. We get hooked and we get stuck in bad lifestyle changes and we can't seem to break out. So you need to understand you can fall forward. You can get back up. Even if you don't see immediate results, you keep eating healthy, intermittent fasting, and you just keep working towards your goal. We are surrounded by a world that tells us self-discipline isn't important. It's very important. We're surrounded by a world that doesn't teach perseverance and fortitude and strength and falling forward, all these biblical principles that are so important. Yes, it's tough. Yes, it's difficult, but you either experience the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. Those are our 2 choices. And so I just want to encourage those listeners. You might have blown it 1,000 times. You might be in your 3rd recovery home. You might have just really gone over the top, and you're obese and you're morbidly obese and you don't know what to do. There is hope, but you got to turn to the right source. You've got to, I believe, turn completely to God and give him your life completely, and then allow him to fill you and direct you. And you have the truth guiding you, and then you can just fall forward and start making lifestyle changes. Okay, you blew it. You blew it yesterday. Get back on track. Oh, I ate something I shouldn't have. Okay, we all have. Get back on track. See, it's all about, I'm not giving a person excuses to indulge. I hope, you realize that, but I am telling them, get back on track and fall forward. All these people you see succeed. You're looking at 40 days. Wow. Do you know how many times I blew it before this 40 days? Even during the 40 days, during Mother's Day, grab some cashews. Oh my gosh. I just preached my heart out 3 times on Easter and had a protein shake. But I'm not going to beat myself up about it. God is not looking for perfection, but direction. So I think people just need to be encouraged. You can do it. It might take you a year. It might take 6 months. It might be you need to tell some of those ungodly relationships to hit the road. You need to give up some of that fast food. You need to get back into healthy living. And actually, if people follow me on my YouTube channel, Shane Idleman on YouTube, I have something called the Pantry Pastor, where I'll go in and I'll take out all the bad food from a refrigerator and a pantry, and I'll put in all life-giving food. And then people begin to educate themselves. And I think it's okay to intermittent fast. You don't need breakfast. You don't need to eat all the time. You don't need to grab snacks. That helped me a lot. You don't have to snack all the time. Those chips look good. I don't need them. I don't need them. We're snacking all the time. And so I don't think we realize how many calories that are adding up. So if you start to make these little changes, intermittent fasting, water fast when you can, healthy, God-given food in moderation, turn off the media and get outside and walk and bike ride. Those things will eventually help you reach your goal big time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent final statements. I'm not gonna put anything else on top of that. I think we've done really well today. I did put up this final comment. Jennifer Bless said, "I feel like I prayed for you to talk like this." Hallelujah. So our meeting here was predestined, or someone put a little word in.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. I know the audience really appreciates, the community appreciates you coming and sharing your wisdom. And this has opened up a new door for me. So I like this.
Yeah.
We're probably going to have to do this again.
We could do part two and answer some of the Bible questions that come in. Because I know a lot of people, that's a big thing. And I've looked at biblically, I've looked at it archaeologically, prophetically, historically, scientifically. The word of God is inerrant. It stands the test of time. To me, there's no doubt, no question. And once I got rid of that struggle in the 20s, and when I was in my 20s, realizing that it is absolute truth, it was really changed my life completely. And so we're not just believing pie in the sky. I mean, it's actually substantiated. It's confirmed, and that's a whole nother topic. But I think that'd be interesting too. And how does fasting tie in? In other words, people say, well, okay, the Bible talks about fasting. How can we rely? How do you know the Bible is true? And so that's a whole another topic.
I like to look. I do my own research. I do my own experiences. I put things to the test. I hear something, it resonates. I just do it. Let's do it. Let's see. Let's document. Everybody can be their own little scientist. We don't have to rely on other people to tell us things. Exactly. We all have this information. We just have to, be intentional about accessing it.
Yes.
So, this has been amazing. I hope you all appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Make sure to subscribe. And as always, the application of knowledge is power. And we'll see you all next time. Have a blessed day, everyone.
Right. Sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
All right.
Good job.
Thanks a lot, Shane.